We had just moved into the El Encanto Country Club in El Salvador, and I had talked to the owners of the club about starting a golf tournament at some point.
The vibe was amazing. We had perfect weather. Everybody's in a good mood. The food was awesome.
It blew any expectation that I had of any kind of country in Central America, and I've been to a few of them.
They had written this essay making a comparison between golf and Bitcoin and being low time preference pursuits.
Not in the power of self, but I believe in the power of, a higher power in meditation. And I really feel like things are like blowing up in our lives in a good way. And it's really beautiful.
We're all equal. There's equal respect for everybody. You're a Bitcoiner, no matter if you have that one Satoshi or hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin.
This podcast is entertainment, not financial, tax, or legal advice. Views expressed represent statements of the speaker in their individual capacity, do not represent the views of Unchained, and should not be considered investment advice. Speakers often have personal, family, or business connections to Unchained, which may include direct financial benefits. Please see our disclosure at unchained.com/podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bitcoin Frontier podcast. This week we have on a very special audience guest show. We're going to be recapping the Bitcoin golf tournament that we had in El Salvador. Real quick, for all of our guests right here, maybe we can do like quick 30-second introductions. Maybe we can start with Chris and Frida, then go to Max and Stacy, and then go to Trey and Rocky. So Chris and Frida, who are you guys, and how are you involved with the golf tournament in El Salvador?
All right, yeah, we're Chris and Frida. We're the, the worker bees behind the production of the Max and Stacy Invitational down in El Salvador. We had a great time producing it. We own a Bitcoin company called Bitcoin Sports Network, and basically we create events that use sports as a platform to help people get more comfortable talking and learning about Bitcoin.
Max and Stacy, I know you guys probably don't need much of an introduction, but feel free to say something.
We're Max and Stacy. I'm Stacy Herbert. I'm the director of the National Bitcoin Office of El Salvador. And Max and I have been making Bitcoin content since 2010. There's a clip of me out there on the internet you can find of me and Max talking on Kaiser Report about Bitcoin at 30 cents. And we've been around in Bitcoin for a while. And now we're in El Salvador for the past 3.5 years. And it's been amazing to work with all of you guys on the Max and Stacy the Bitcoin Golf Invitational.
Yep, I'm Max Kaiser, and I'm the genius behind the Coco Max, which is it was born in El Salvador. It's going to be $1 billion brand in El Salvador, and I'm throwing all my weight behind the Coco Max now.
Love it. Trey, Rocky, you guys?
Hi, I'm Trey Sellers. I'm VP of Sales here at Unchained. And one of the authors, along with you, Joe, and Rocky, of the golf and Bitcoin article that kicked this whole thing off. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Rocky Wold, Director of Sales, Unchained, calling live from the space, the best Bitcoin co-working hub in Colorado, based here in Denver. Big Bitcoiner, golfer, and third place finisher at the Max and Stacy Invitational.
That was amazing.
Wow.
Love it. Congrats, Rocky. Well done. Let's start a question with Max. Max, for the audience that may not know much about El Salvador and the golf tournament, how did this come about, and how was the event from your perspective?
All right. So it started at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, and I met Rocky and Trey and Joe, I think, and they had written this essay making a comparison between golf and Bitcoin and being low time preference pursuits. And we had just moved into the El Encanto Country Club in El Salvador, and I had talked to the owners of the club about starting a golf tournament at some point. And so I brought this up to Trey and Rocky, maybe we should do an event in El Salvador at this country club. And they put me in touch with Chris and Frida. And then Chris flew down just a few days later to check out the club. And it was a Monday. They're not opened on Monday, and it was kind of rainy. But he went out there intrepidly, played some golf, and he came back very enthusiastic by the course. Thought it was a really fun course. He described it as a video game. I myself, I hardly have any experience with golf at all, really. I'm just starting to get back into it after a 45-year break. And So his enthusiasm was high. So then we went to work. So the whole thing really was, from concept to execution, was like 5 months, which is amazing. The club was great in helping us out. It turned out the club was very well suited for this type of event. I kind of had in my mind, beyond just the golf tournament, because I noticed other golf tournaments happening at the club. And when the golfers are out on the course, the clubhouse is basically empty. And to me, that seemed like that's a lot of wasted space. Like there's something you can do with that space. So we kind of got into this idea piece by piece, talking to Chris, talking to Frida about, well, how could we build that out? And we ended up with the stage and some sound system. And so it became like a mini conference almost. So we had the speakers, we had the sponsors up on stage talking about all of their products and things. And it worked out pretty well because a lot of the products dovetailed well with each other. So the Casa guy, Nick Newman, his product dovetailed with the Cold Card and other sponsors where you can use actually on the Casa platform. So all the community of how these products work together, which I've never seen at a conference before. It's generally quite more abstract. And so that was kind of fun. And the food was great. Rick Chef, who is the executive chef at the club, is really passionate about his food, and the food was great. They went above and beyond with the food. We had a fireworks show at the end. The weather was perfect. For the month of January, it tends to be a windy month. Those 2 days at the event were really the absolute best days of the month. So we lucked out on the weather. And anecdotally, to give you kind of a fun insight into this, we had Azteca Bank as a sponsor, and they marked down 2 or 3 players to come to play the event. A few days before the event, we got word like they're doing a switch. They're swapping out their card, with some other players. So he thought, okay, sure, yeah, we can put in these new players. Well, sure enough, they won the tournament. So now, we're thinking, Ricardo, or Uncle Ricky as he's known, the guy is a shark. He sent in some pros, which is fine because pros are allowed to play. But, the jacket, the prize is basically now in Mexico. So now we have to go to Mexico, stage an event in Mexico to win back the glory of the Salvadoran golfing community. So that's what we're up to now.
Let's do that. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like a call to arms to me.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. This was my first time visiting El Salvador and El Encanto Country Club, and it was absolutely beautiful. Definitely recommend people go check it out. You mentioned that we wrote an article on Bitcoin and golf. Trey, can you maybe elaborate on why we decided to write an article on Bitcoin and golf?
I mean, we really decided to write it because we love Bitcoin and we love golf. And there is kind of this natural synergy that Max was hinting at, in that it's a low time preference game. You've got to devote a significant amount of time and patience to it over the course of a lifetime in order to be any good at it at all. It requires proof of work. You need to actually be out on the range, hashing it out, so to speak, to really, drill down your swing and get good at this game. And then the other point that we made in that article is it's really important that you just don't make mistakes with your Bitcoin. And it's very important that you don't make mistakes on the golf course, so you keep that to a minimum. And so those 3 points of synergy just really resonated with us. And we just thought this would be a fun way to spend some time, and maybe we'll get some good accolades. Because I've noticed over the years that there are actually quite a few golfers in the Bitcoin world. And, Chris and Frida, kind of at the advent of Bitcoin Sports Network, put on a really great event ahead of Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville that I love playing in. It was really great. And there were so many other people who were singing praises for that particular event. So it just kind of made sense for me to put a little effort, for us to put a little effort into bringing these 2 loves of ours together. And frankly speaking, I just want to be able to play more golf and to be able to mix golf and Bitcoin and work and golf and all of this stuff. That's a really nice way to spend some time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fun little side project. I remember like when we published it, Rocky like came to us like a day later, the same day, and he was like, "Hey guys, like Max Kaiser like really liked our article, and I think he like wants to do a tournament in El Salvador." I was like, "Really? Okay, that's interesting." So Rocky, like, what did you think about the article, and like when did you realize like, wow, this is going to turn into something more than just a random thing that we published on Bitcoin Magazine?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I knew it was going to be, I mean, from the second that I got the message from Max, I kind of had to pinch myself. I was like, wait, did Max just DM me about a golf article that we just published? Because that's pretty cool. I didn't even know that he was a player. I didn't know he was interested in golf. So from that moment, I knew I could already see the vision, right? Like Max and Stacy both have great vision. When he kind of sent me some messages, I was so excited. I mean, you guys know I relayed it to the two of you immediately that same day. And going to work on getting it to work. And it really picked up traction in Nashville. We played in the Nashville tournament. Shout out to the Bitcoin Sports Network and Chris and Frida for just all the great work they did on that. I played in a lot of golf tournaments. It's easy to tell the ones where the people, pay attention to the details and run it correctly versus the ones that don't. And that one was top notch, one of the best I've ever played in. I played golf with Chris the next day, and he told me the vision of BSN and Bitcoin Sports Network and creating it right there, and what he had been thinking about that. And from there, it was kind of like the vision that Max had outlined just less than a week before had kind of now met like an executor, like someone actually that's going to execute on this besides just trade. And so that's what I knew it was really going to happen. I was just very excited that they were equally as passionate and pumped up about the idea of Bitcoin and golf and sports in general together. I think that everyone's kind of felt this. We've seen over the last few years professional athletes starting to take their salary in Bitcoin and getting more interested in Bitcoin for various reasons. And I really think when Chris and I stood on that tee and he was telling you about Bitcoin Sports Network, I mean, it truly felt like we're in a new era of Bitcoin sports. And I really think that the Max and Stacy Invitational has set the bar extremely high for what all these things going forward will have to live up to.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask Chris and Frida, like, what was it like organizing the event, and what are you guys doing? Like, what's your long-term vision with the Bitcoin Sports Network?
Sure. So I think, Bitcoin Sports Network, the reason that was started is Bitcoin education. That's really at the core of this. And we just always have been brainstorming us like, how do we get more people in? And, Chris is an avid golfer. He golfs at least once a week. And so he would, come back from the course and tell me these stories of like actually having gotten to somebody's mind through the round of golf, to the point where he was able to send somebody, a podcast link or just that first enticing into Bitcoin. And then, actual people that then, later on purchased. And so, we kind of have a history of education. We've wrote a kid's book, Bitcoin for Kiddos. So that was the other aspect, that we really wanted to make this particular event, because we knew it was a destination event, approachable to families that wanted to travel, with the significant others. And so that was a really cool thing, that we had education for the non-players, also while the players were on the course, such as the Bitcoin hardware store, locally came and explained, how do you store your Bitcoin? How do you take it offline and stuff like that? And much more beyond that, obviously. But and kids, hanging out by the pool and, getting Bitcoin for Kiddos books and all of these things. So I think, the vision is we want to go bigger in a way where really the goal is, who at the top can we orange pill? And I think that there's a lot of movement right now in the Bitcoin community, with the new presidency coming in and everything, that a lot of people are pushing towards Bitcoin education to the top. And what better way than, with the current president that is an avid golfer, than to, get to that goal along with where the masses are kind of going today. So,
yeah. My thoughts on Bitcoin Sports Network is, Bitcoin is a very inclusive community, and sports are very inclusionary as well. And so what a better way to take, in my life, sports and Bitcoin are kind of like my two favorite things outside of my family and religion and all that kind of stuff. So when I thought about a way, how do we bring people into the Bitcoin community that not necessarily are opposed to Bitcoin, but don't necessarily feel comfortable having discussions about it? So can we make an environment that would inspire that kind of conversation making? And, I thought, golf is one of my passions. A lot of work and business happens on golf courses. You spend a lot of time with one another. You can get a good sense of a person's personality based on how they interact with other people and themselves around a golf course. And so it was just kind of this natural merger of the idea of bringing Bitcoin and golf together. Now, on a managerial side, like what you were asking, how was it to create the event? Frida did a lot of the legwork. The thing that created so much legwork is at the beginning, I didn't prioritize managing how much time she got to spend with Max, because every time those two got together, the tournament just went up a notch.
Bigger,
it went up a
better.
notch. It started as a golf tournament,
Yes.
A small little get together. Maybe we'll get 72 people. Maybe we won't even have that many people show up to, then we're at 90 people. And then it's like, okay, well, what about their families? Okay, so now we're at 90 plus 90 non-players. And it's like, well, how many people can the club hold? Well, the club can hold 300 people. Okay, so let's go to 300 people. And then it just like kept becoming this bigger and bigger thing where at some point I just was like, all right, you guys can't talk to each other for a while. Let's on what we got going here. And, we'll go from there.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised because I was making suggestions and then, Frida was putting them into action. And then I think I did suggest a blimp at some point that would fly over the golf course or something like that. And, Frida's like, yeah, that's a great idea. I was like,
So
okay, there's no holds barred here. Let's keep going bigger. Let's go bigger.
Bitcoin is the ultimate scarce asset. Join Bitcoin macro expert Nick Bhatia at a live online event on March 17th for death, taxes, and 21 million. Learn how to shield your wealth, leverage tax-advantaged accounts, and secure your Bitcoin for future generations. Your financial advisor, accountant, or attorney might not be up to speed on Bitcoin. Don't get caught off guard. Register now at unchained.com/21M. That's unchained.com/21M. And now back to the show.
I love it. Any other crazy ideas? Like if for the next Max and Stacy Invitational, is there going to be a blimp? Is there going to be something else potentially bigger?
Well,
Max,
the couple of
ideas?
the ideas we're going to keep under wraps for now, until we unveil them. But one idea that we started with that we didn't do this year was the Crypto Cloaks was going to do like a 25 or 30 foot version of one of their Bitcoin grenades, which is like the Max Kaiser signature Crypto Cloaks grenade at the entrance of the club. And the shipping is a bit tricky into El Salvador. And then we couldn't really find reliable shipping that we felt comfortable with. So we passed on it this year. So maybe next year we'll revisit that huge Bitcoin grenade idea, which I have some history with the country, because I tried to get it through the airport with a version of that in my luggage, which caused a lot of problems at the airport, the grenade size version. And so it's I'm kind of famous for trying to smuggle a grenade through the airport. And but I think that maybe revisit that.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I like that idea. That would be awesome. Rocky, like when you were at the event and, we wrote that article about like proof of work, long-term thinking and precision, not making mistakes. Do you think a lot of people like in golf that are interested in golf today would be interested in Bitcoin once they realize like a lot of those ideas kind of align together?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I've even started to get my friends who are interested in golf before, but not interested in Bitcoin. Now they're asking questions about Bitcoin with this whole kind of movement because they're seeing these overlaps that we're kind of presenting, right? And, specific to that tournament, I think it's just a test that 300 people from around the world came to this tournament, to El Salvador, to El Encanto specifically, to celebrate that. And I feel like a lot of people felt it in their core. Like, here's the thing. With a lot of sports, you can find high time preference and low preference depending on where you're looking, right? Like, I'm not out here speaking on behalf of everybody saying that everyone who golfs is looking out for their future self ahead of themselves. A lot of people just want to have fun. I mean, it's timely that the Waste Management Open is going on right now, right? Like, take one look at that and tell me if people there are like Bitcoiner mentality. But, for overall for this tournament, I definitely felt that. And specific to my situation that I can speak from, an example that I could share is that I had the privilege to golf with Wilbert. I think his name's Alvarado. He's the number one golfer in El Salvador, and he's an absolute prodigy. He's an absolute, just really pleasant young man that I got to know over the course of 3 rounds. And I just couldn't believe after golfing with him, like the place that he had gotten to today based on how tough it must have been to grow up in El Salvador when he did, right? Post Civil War, the gang violence, everything that was happening. And I like to think that this passion and love that he had for the game, and he found like a lot of solace in the game of golf, and spent that time where he could really learn outside of probably his normal environment he was used to, and on the golf course in a place where he could really take time to learn about himself in the kind of those formative years, which I resonate with. And I think that it's very a great example of the Bitcoin journey, in that both golf and Bitcoin, the more time that you spend in them learning about kind of the mastery of it and really going down the rabbit hole, what you learn is that it's not about it at all. Like, it's about golf, learning about golf, or becoming a master at golf or Bitcoin. You get to a point where you realize, like, oh, this is kind of about myself. Like, I'm really starting to understand myself, and this is kind of making me a better version of myself through this outlet. And so that was just really cool to see, to meet Wilbert, and now he has kind of an incredible community of supporters in El Salvador, both locally and hopefully soon around the world, who will be supporting him. He's competing in other tournaments and trying to get to that next level, which, as we know in golf, is requires a lot of work. And I heard through a friend who's working with him that he's been practicing every day. So I'll be rooting Wilbert on, as we all should be.
I actually wanted to jump in there and say that Wilbert is a great example of the Bitcoin ethos and the transformation of El Salvador, because, in Bitcoin, whether you have one Satoshi or you have as much Bitcoin as a, strategy, the previously known as MicroStrategy, right? We're all equal. There's equal respect for everybody. You're a Bitcoiner, no matter if you have that one Satoshi or hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, right? Wilbur is a very interesting story, because in El Salvador, golfing has been primarily, obviously dominated by the very elite, right? The small group of elite that the country has had. But he, has grown up in, what we would consider deep poverty. But he learned to golf by caddying at one of the clubs in El Salvador, and between breaks he would get to play golf for free. He's now the number one player in El Salvador, and he did that through just sheer passion for the game, and working hard. And that when he came in first, when he placed first in the international sort of rankings that happen in countries, like, everybody was shocked that this kid, he's 22 years old, and taught himself at the golf course between caddying. It's a wonderful story of transformation, and he has the whole world as his oyster now, right? And that's something that's really quite new to El Salvador. And I think 80% of the people who showed up from out of El Salvador for the tournament, 80% of the people raised their hand and said this was their first time to El Salvador. I think that story of El Salvador is appealing to Bitcoiners, and they came to see it and they fell in love. But the Salvadorans who were at the Max and Stacy Bitcoin Golf Invitational, I'll tell you one story that one of the guys, he placed, I think, 4th or 5th. He's a very good old friend of President Bukele. And he said to the president afterward that, I mean, he was so excited. We saw him there and he was just on cloud 9. He just loved this event, and he's a golfer. But he said to the president that, like, if this is what Bitcoin is about, then I'm all in. Like, because Bitcoin is a vibe, right? It's an amazing vibe that you don't really see on, because of that. It's like everybody's equal, no matter, like I'm saying, like if you have 1 Satoshi or hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, you're a Bitcoiner, and we're all like equal, and we're having a vibe, we're having fun, we're like, we know the future is ours, right? Like we know where this is all going, and everybody's in a good mood all the time, right? There's no down days. You just know that everything is heading to a certain destination. And we've known that since 2010, right? Like that attitude that Bitcoiners have had since 2010, like, or you read Bitcoin Talk early chats and you see people like Hal Finney in 2009, like claiming that Bitcoin would be like 100,000 a coin or 200,000 a coin or $1 million a coin back then, before there was even a price for it. And you're just like, wow, like that attitude and confidence is, it's a good feeling to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great story, and I completely agree. Like the people at the tournament and the El Salvadorian people were amazing to talk to and speak with. So it was awesome. Trey, did you have any like very memorable moments or like standout moments at the event that you really liked?
Well, aside from Caddygate, which I'll Rocky and Joe know what I'm talking about there. I'll get back to you guys on that.
Wow.
Chris and Frida.
Stacy's curious about Caddy.
I haven't ever heard of Caddy.
Is there's several members that got to play with their caddies, and other people didn't get that opportunity for course reading. But I don't know. Is that what you mean by Caddygate?
We can talk offline.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Wow.
Oh man. Sorry for throwing that grenade in there. Memorable moment. No, Stacy's absolutely right. Like the vibe was amazing. We had perfect weather. Everybody's in a good mood. The food was awesome. The music was everywhere. People are walking around, like the non-players were all in a good mood. There were people jumping out of the pool, in the pool, all of that kind of thing, like throughout the day. We're just out playing golf in El Salvador in the middle of January, which, back home, my kids were playing in 5 inches of snow in Atlanta during that time period. So I missed all of that cold weather, which was great. Like it really could not have been a better event. And the turnout was amazing. We sold the tickets out in, what was it, like 40 minutes, Chris and Frida, like unbelievable. And, I'm really looking forward to see like what that looks like in the next year. I think the biggest like thing that kind of wrapped everything up for me was we all got done with the actual competition event on the main day, and then we were doing the 19th hole competition, and everybody's standing on this little platform with a mat, hitting balls down to, I think that was the 18th green, which is about 100 yards away, but like 200 feet down, and you've got like 50 or 70 people crowded around watching everybody in succession hitting this ball down to this green, and we're all cheering and looking to see the next guy who gets it closer or lady who gets it closer. It was just like, it felt like the culmination of the event coming together to watch everybody like cheering for each other and just having a really good time. So that was the most memorable moment for me.
Yeah, that was a really cool part of the event. I definitely really enjoyed that. On the infinity pool, hitting shots down there, it was absolutely incredible.
That was awesome.
Nobody saw me, hit the inaugural ball off the first tee to start the event. I only had Chris and a couple of other folks, and apparently that was not covered at all.
How did it go, Max? How did you hit it?
It made it in the video.
By the way, while all you players were out on the course, of course, we were down in the Cocoa Max, and the guy, the farmer with the coconut trees, did ask Chef Rick. He's like, Like, we've already given you 357 coconuts. Like, what do these gringos think? Like, do these coconuts, like, we can't just keep on producing them. Like, I only have so many coconuts.
Yeah, we did
57
of those drinks. We sold those drinks, so that was so Rick wants to put it into like a standalone machine. So it's just you just pour it right in there, and I said he could fill up the pool with Cocoa Max, and it would take about 47,000 shots of espresso and 10 tons of coconut meat, and we could figure it all out.
And I also want to add that Chef Rick said the whole waiting staff loves Bitcoiners. They love Bitcoiners so much. They could not believe the amount of tips they were being given. Some of them were like, somebody gave us $50 tip on a $40 order. And they were just like in total shock that Bitcoiners were so generous and happy. Just that vibe I was telling you about.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's like a sense of optimism in both like Bitcoin and El Salvador. I think Trey and Rocky, like this was y'all's first time visiting El Salvador. What did you think about it for someone that maybe, that's listening to this and may have never been to El Salvador yet and is thinking about going? What did you guys think about it for your first time?
I can go first there. I mean, it's funny because, this was a 4 years in the making type thing. As a Bitcoiner, you hear the headlines, you see Max and Stacy, the work that they're doing down over the course of 4 years and seeing how great it could be. And you kind of have this expectation in your head. It blew any expectation that I had of any kind of country in Central America, and I've been to a few of them. It was incredible. Listening to at dinner with Max and Stacy the night before the tournament started and just hearing about their journey through that and the ups and downs was really grounding, and to be there. And I'll always remember that. I spent most of my time on El Zante Beach. Highly recommend. One of the most beautiful beaches that I've ever seen. The way that I've described it to people, because there's volcanoes in El Salvador, I feel it, and maybe it's because of that, I actually don't know, but like there's the beaches there are black sand. It's just this beautifully soft black sand, and there's not a pebble. There's not a single rock on this beach. I swear. I ran up and down it many times. Not a single rock. And in this town, this little town of El Zante, there's like an energy to it at every hour of the day, but it's quiet too. It's not like obnoxious, right? Like there's people there having a good time, but everything closes at like 8 or 9 p.m., even on the weekend. And even then, it's quiet, but you can feel like an energy there. And maybe it's the volcanic in the sand. I don't know. My biggest takeaway from El Salvador that I always remember was talking to the locals. And I'm not the best in Spanish, but like what I could. And I talked to people, local men and women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And one thing that a lot of them had said was essentially the change that they had noticed over the last 5 years. Was that they felt they could live their lives for the first time. Like they could go outside and they can start businesses and they can do what they want and they don't have to live in fear. And you could see that like smile on their face. And I've never been somewhere where someone had that kind of attitude just about in general. So we'll surely be back. I'm very excited to make that tradition. And you never know. There's a lot of people moving to El Salvador these days.
Yeah.
Also, to mention that the Pacific water is warm. It's very warm, and usually that's not the case. Like in Santa Monica in California, the Pacific water is very cold. People don't go in the water, but in El Zante, it's actually quite warm.
Yeah. The beach is definitely beautiful. The one thing that surprised me, and maybe it shouldn't have, was all the food that I had was great. Like the ceviche was unbelievable. The fish that I had was unbelievable. It was just really good food. We had burritos one place. It's just we went, we took these motorbikes over to the next town over, El Tunco, and we're just walking around and checking things out. And we saw a security guard there, and we asked him like, where can we get the best possible meal here? And he pointed us down the road. He was like, best, like todo el mundo, right? Best in the world. And we go over there and it was really, really good. We just sat down, we had some burritos, or we had some, meat and fish and shrimp and that kind of thing. It was just all the food and don't know. I'm gushing over the food because I'm kind of a foodie myself, but like it was surprising in some ways. I just wasn't expecting that to be that good.
We also had the salted red snapper at the dinner with Max and Stacy. Stacy,
Yeah.
that like the
That's right.
ceremonial,
Yeah.
red snapper. That was something.
Stacy, I
That-
still need you to send us those pictures and
Oh,
videos.
I'll look for those photos. Sorry.
Yeah,
No, the red
that
snapper. The red snapper at Garton Hotel is amazing. I mean, Max mentioned it's the Pacific, and that's important in that, you know, it's the tropics, but the ocean is the Pacific, is deep and cold. So unlike the Caribbean, which is a different sort of fish in there, right? You don't have that cold water fish, which is, fattier. It has a nice, more flavor. So you can order red snapper from the Garton Hotel, but you have to do it 24 hours in advance because they literally just give the order. They say we have 10 people, 15 people, and they want red snapper. And they go out at 4 a.m. and they go catch the fish to order. You know, the red snapper is quite huge, right? And it fits on a whole table, and they cook it to order in salt crust. And it's so amazing that it's worth a journey to El Salvador just to have that red snapper.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible. Chris and Frida, have you guys been to El Salvador before the event, or was that y'all's first time as well?
We made our first pilgrimage down to El Salvador back in 2022.
Okay.
Kind of after Bukele had come in and had started making a lot of the changes and cleaned up all the crime on the streets. We always had a sense of we wanted to go within a short period of that happening so we could go back at a later date and then see what kind of progress had been made. And true to form, the first time we were down there, even in El Zante, even though it's Bitcoin Beach and it's the most well-known, it was still very rural, if you will. No cobblestone roads, dirt roads, not a lot of paved roads, a lot of older, very third world country. I don't know another way to say it. Central America, third world country, like what you see in documentaries and stuff. But after going back now, there was a whole bunch more business had started up. Roads were paved. There's new electrical and water systems in there. It was just, you could tell that even after 2 years, how much progress had been made and how much excitement and enthusiasm there was from the people who lived there about what the next couple of years held for them.
Yeah, it was very beautiful and very clean, and El Zante was absolutely beautiful, a great experience. Rocky, looking back at your experience with the golf tournament and then visiting El Salvador, is there anything that you would have done differently, or anything that you would have done in addition to everything that you already did?
If I played a little better, I probably would have won that orange jacket. So
Fair.
next time I'm coming for that. If you there's a chance to make a Bitcoin on the hole-in-one hole, so everyone who's a golfer should sign up for this tournament for next year just at that chance to win a whole Bitcoin. I mean, we've done that the past 2 tournaments. I think the first one, the price was around $50,000 a Bitcoin, and now it was still a Bitcoin. We did it at 100,000. I mean, Bitcoin might be at $1 million next year to do this, and we'll still be doing it for a Bitcoin. So it's worth the ticket price.
Wow.
No, I mean, that's besides just playing better. I think in Trey's attitude on Caddygate, I think that there's nothing else I'd do differently.
Well, you could spend more time. You could have come a few days earlier and spend some more time, see some of the volcanoes. You mentioned the volcanoes, so you can go up to the volcanoes and climb them. It takes a few hours. But
That's true. Actually, Stacy, now that you mentioned it, I stayed a day after and I went surfing, and next time I'm going to take a surf lesson because those waves absolutely tossed me. That was exhausting.
Also, we had a fantastic media team, independent media team. So there was JV from Crypto News came down from Puerto Rico. We had Brandon Martin, who's the house artist for Max and Stacy and meme artist, who came and did a lot of great videos. We had Isabella came and she did a lot of videos. So we had some really fantastic media throughout the whole piece, which was, I think, added a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Rocky, you brought up the potential for $1 million Bitcoin in the future. I kind of want to hear Max's thoughts. Max, what do you think is next for Bitcoin? I've heard you mention 220,000 Bitcoin dollars per Bitcoin in the future, maybe 2.2 million at some point. Where do you think we're going next?
Well, I always say, the price is the least interesting part about Bitcoin. And if you're looking for a better price signal, a better signal in terms of what it's all about, look at the hash rate, because it tells you how much of a commitment people are making to the network. And that has pretty much just been in a consistent bull market for the whole time that Bitcoin's been around. The price is volatile, but the hash rate keeps going up. Just hit a new all-time high. So, that's should give you comfort in terms of owning Bitcoin. It's not. Think about the energy industry for a second. So, when energy prices are down, you say the rig count or the amount of money people are throwing into drilling energy goes down too. So the rig count goes down. There are layoffs. The cities disappear. Because the price is down. With Bitcoin, it doesn't matter what the price is. The hash rate keeps going up. People just keep throwing money at this network no matter what the price is. And I think that's the way you got to think of it. If you're stacking Bitcoin, it doesn't matter what the price is. It's just, you just have to keep stacking. So, the price is directionally, obviously, it's going to continue to go up. What's the CAGR going to be, or the compounded annual return? I think it's roughly 60% now. I think there's an expectation that it'll stay at the 50 to 60% range for a while. Obviously, the new money coming in is huge. I think that, on the other side, being a stockbroker myself for many years, of course, you have to look at the risk, any possible risk of anything. And, you mentioned the president of the United States is looking at Bitcoin and his team, but they're also looking at a lot of other junk out there. So, and that's always been a drag on the Bitcoin price, is the presence of garbage. And so they're going to have to go through that whole process that everyone goes through, where, you have to get through your own. Somebody said on this call earlier that Bitcoin is a reflection of who you really are. And so is golf. And I think that's true. And so either this big money comes to an understanding about who they really are, and they understand what Bitcoin is all about, or we're just going to give birth to 10,000 versions of Craig Wright. And all the psychosis that comes with that. I hope that's not the outcome. I hope, I believe Bitcoin will always prevail for those who can see it for what it really is. And, at this point, I'm hopeful that the large institutions that are entering the space don't turn out to be just larger versions of Craig Wright.
Mm-hmm. Max, looking back on your career before Bitcoin, did you ever think you'd be hosting an internet money golf tournament in El Salvador?
No, as I said, I read the essay, which kicked everything off. And then when we joined up with Chris and Frida, then, the actual organization of it started to kick in, and it just started to come together in a way that was it went from the idea to the execution of the idea very quickly. Like within a few days, we were executing. And they say that having ideas is easy, but execution is hard. And so, I have ideas every single day. I have 10 ideas a day. I'm not necessarily great on execution, but with Chris and Frida, though, on the execution side, they're brilliant. And so that's what really is the big difference, that this is what made it at the end of the day. When the tournament started, I was looking at my phone, and I'm in like 20 different chats for this tournament. And I'm figuring, okay, this is going to blow up at any second now with 100,000 different problems. And I didn't see a single problem, except for one sponsor had one of their names on one placard was not visible. That was fixed in 5 minutes. That is amazing. Every single thing I've ever been involved with before comes with a lot of problems. This is the first thing that I've ever been involved with that had virtually no problems. So it was a total easy for me. So and Stacy. So we again, had hats off to Chris and Frida.
Yeah. Chris and Frida, what's the secret to that great execution? Like I know many people in the Bitcoin space, host meetups, conferences, and all other sorts of events. How did you guys execute the Max and Stacy Invitational so well?
I think as a preface to that, we know each other for a long time. So I think it comes down to the team, and you know your weakness, you know your strength, and to be able to work fast and communicate clearly. And so we've been married for forever, and we've been through the ups and downs of past businesses and really understood where do we fail and what can we not do well together and what works. And that's kind of like the brilliance of this coming into our lives right now, because we're just like, wow, like we look at these problems that other people have such a hard time figuring out, and that comes very naturally to us. So I'm totally excited about this. I feel like it's a blessing that just came my way, like I said, on stage when I was there. I believe, not in the power of self, but I believe in the power of, a higher power in meditation. And I really feel like things are like blowing up in our lives in a good way. And it's really beautiful because I think one thing that, really has been resonating with me when I found Bitcoin is like all of a sudden, like you don't have to think about the money struggle anymore. You kind of, shift your focus, as you were saying, you kind of like go into the self-discovery. And with that, all of a sudden, and this might sound morbid, but it's very clear that there's limited time on this earth in order to create and to affect. And, we have young kids, and that has always been, I think, our goal, to be the best role models that we can be, not just like in I tell you and you do, but like in actually performing it for them so that they can copy it easier. And so, yeah.
I have a much more pragmatic answer, and that's basically I woke up every morning and I said, what could go wrong today? And then I tried to just think about the timeline of what we were trying to accomplish and kind of think about how long those things would take, and then just take it, one step at a time, one piece at a time. And kind of what Frida was saying about, things in our life have led us to this moment where the seemingly difficult don't seem that difficult. And it reminds me of a saying I heard not that long ago, which is one man asked another man, how did you become such an overnight success? And the answer back was basically, I'm not successful or lucky. I've just failed more than you've tried. Mm. And, as I thought about all of the challenges that came up, all the pieces that had to be put together to create something like this, because we're just two people, we're not Bitcoin Magazine. We don't have a group of people. We don't have like a big crew. When we spun up the tournament in El Salvador, it was from 0 to 100. Don't speak Spanish, don't have any vendor relationships, can't ship anything down to the country. So it really began just kind of using our natural ability to talk to people and feel comfortable in our own skin, asking a lot of questions and not feel like we knew the answers to things, and just kind of, going through the process. And, there was a lot of stonewalls that we got along the way, and a lot of vendors where we had to cut ties and then quickly shift over to something else because, time was of the essence. It was better to be a day early than a day late, in the case of a tournament.
Yeah, we're totally agile in that respect, and it really worked out well considering it is a country that hadn't been worked in before. You got me thinking now about, is that true? Is this the best organized thing I've ever been involved with? And the only comparable thing would be Stacy did a 10-part documentary on Bitcoin. I think, what was it called? The first 10 years of Bitcoin, I believe.
No, it's called To the Moon.
To the Moon. It's called To the Moon. It's a 10-part documentary series that was aired on RT, and it was shot in 2 days. We did 5 episodes a day, 2 days in a row. And that was an amazing production because we ended up with this amazing 10-part documentary that was complete, and that was completely organized. And
actually, everybody should go check that out because it is a masterpiece, I think. And by the end of it, you could see in episodes like 8, 9, and 10, we were losing our voices after talking from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. in the Associated Press. We were recording in New York City, and we had to get this out. And it was it really tied together the first 10 years of Bitcoin and the important moments that were captured on film at that time, which most of it was Kaiser Report because there wasn't much else being recorded on video at that time in the first 6 years, say. Yeah. But it was really good. Yeah. Thank you, Max.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, this has been amazing. I'm glad that we could all take the time to do this real quick. Maybe we can go around the room and do some closing thoughts on Bitcoin, El Salvador, and any other things that you guys have in mind. Maybe we can start with Rocky and Trey and then go from there.
Go ahead, Trey.
Oh, closing thoughts. I think one of the things that I learned from this whole experience is that you can just do things. And I really learned that very early on in the interaction with Max. We're like chatting, on text. And then we bring Chris and Frida into the mix, and they had that same attitude, like, you can just do things. And I think this is a microcosm of what Bitcoin is and what we're doing here. We're just doing things to meme the best money the world has ever seen into existence and proliferating throughout the world. And as long as we continue with that attitude, with that perspective, with that like wider aperture in mind, we're just going to absolutely like take the world over, take the world by storm with this whole Bitcoin thing. It is reminding me of that meme. I don't know if you all know this. There's this meme where Satoshi, in the form of a cartoon, kisses this gray girl on the cheek, and throughout the meme, the orange just kind of floods over her body. Like, that's what we're doing here in the Bitcoin world. And this Max and Stacy Golf Invitational was just a microcosm of that attitude and that viewpoint. So it was really profound for me to kind of come into this and see something that just started with this little fun article blossom into this massive ordeal that's gonna have ramifications into the future and into next year.
Very well said. I can't add much more to that. I will say I want to shout out to everyone at El Encanto Country Club, all the staff. Rick and the head pro and the groundskeeper did a fantastic job. The course is in amazing shape. If you've ever played a Pete Dye course, you know he's notorious for making it hard, and that course did not disappoint. It definitely showed its teeth over that weekend. I also do want to give a shout out to our company Unchained for sponsoring. We really enjoyed being a part of that and helping. Don't be like Trey when it comes to be upset you didn't get a caddy. If you need a caddy, look to Unchained. We can help you in your journey so you don't make these mistakes.
Love it. Chris and Frida, any final thoughts from you guys?
Do you mind if I go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I've had a question I've wanted to ask you guys this whole time. I think it's perfect here as a final thought. I'm kind of interested from you guys partnering with BSN and Max and Stacy for this event. How did you guys feel this partnership and the sponsorship was for an event like this? Did you guys feel like you got the return on investment you were looking for? How has it helped you kind of elevate Unchained and help you grow the business?
It was a huge ROI for us. It's been really great getting to know Max and Stacy and working closely with you and the reach that you have, just given the history of where you have come from and being out on the forefront in El Salvador and what that means for the Bitcoin movement. So I think, having the Unchained brand alongside such a well-run, well-produced event that, really fits very well, like the way that we think about the brand fit for a golf event is that it fits very well with our kind of core demographic of client base, which is typically high net worth or people with larger Bitcoin balances, because we're talking about, nuclear grade security for your Bitcoin and financial services built around that. And so pairing that up with the game of golf, which typically has a similar demographic, just makes all the sense in the world. So really looking forward to future partnership in that regard.
And to any other company out there, definitely recommend working with BSN. I mean, they're going to be putting on the best events. They're going to be like the Bitcoin Super Bowl, and not many years from now, it's going to be run through the BSN. So you may as well get on this train early. And also, it's like you want to sponsor fun events. Everyone sponsors conferences and all these things, and that's great. But like, sponsor the fun events. That's what people remember.
Yeah. Oh yeah, one of the early concepts we had was that this conference or this event would have the best elements of a conference that usually happen in the back room, in the hallway. You're networking, you're schmoozing, and the panels and things that typically the focus of a conference are not necessarily the best part of the conference. So it was a conference or an event with stripped out all of the boring bits and just kept the fun bits, right? And I think that worked, and it's all vibe and no speakers. It's like, just the vibe is good. But then that was the idea. And then later we, as I said, the idea was actually, let's add a bit of a conference to it. So then that evolved to the stage and having people on stage. And so then that also worked well too. So that ultimately, I think we hit checked all the boxes.
Absolutely. Frida, any closing thoughts?
I think, just want to throw it out there for next year's event, because the Coco Max was such a hit. We have a Coco Max sponsorship that we opened up. So there's endless flowing Coco Maxes throughout the whole event. As well as, we're thinking more and more about the non-players and entertainment there. The stage was great this time. We got great feedback, but we want to bring in a pickleball tournament on Friday as well.
I'll give away all this.
Well, it's on the website. So.
Heard it here first.
But yeah, so absolutely, thanks for, Max and Stacy did not know us before we started this, and they were just kind of like, go do this. So there was absolute trust. So thank you for that. And, we love that, this was such a great partnership that we get to do it again next year. I just also want to throw out, because I know you guys are head sponsoring BitBlock Boom this year, that we will actually have a tournament at BitBlock Boom called the Bitcoin Golf Classic. You can find it under the bitcoingolfclassic.com, and go sign up and play some golf while you're there.
Yeah.
Nice.
And final thought is, I just want to say thanks again to Trey and Rocky. Like, you guys have been kind of an instrumental part. And, Trey, you were talking about the execution part of the deal. And I know some of the conversations that we had actually helped give us the confidence to make that execution actually, that it could work. So, thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Trey, for your help in helping to create these events, because, you guys were a good sponsor at the championship in Nashville, and a headline sponsor at the event at the Max and Stacy Invitational. And, with your guys' funding and, partnership with the tournament, really gave it the seed money that it needed in order to be created. So without the two of you guys and you, Joe, and the article that you guys wrote, that tournament probably never would have happened. So thank you very much for that opportunity.
You're
Absolutely.
here to make more.
Yeah, definitely. Max and Stacy, any final thoughts?
Well, this Max and Stacy Bitcoin Golf Invitational was quite extraordinary. And it was, for me, like the culmination of 3.5 years of a lot of hard work in El Salvador to make it a big success, the country, a Bitcoin country. So, I feel choked up right now, but we put a lot of effort into it. And I think it was great to have so many people get to see the work that we've done over the past 3.5 years through gang war, through a pretty brutal bear market in Bitcoin. And we just kept building and building and building. And I think it's been mentioned a few times here that the US president is now kind of Bitcoin, i.e. crypto friendly. And I think the actions from the US have demonstrated, have made quite clear to all Bitcoiners just exactly how much work Max and I have put in to the success of El Salvador. It was a lot of hard work. And, the President Bukele says all the time, strong men create good times. And I think these are the good times. These are we put in the effort, we put in we were the strong men and women who were putting in building the country. And it's just great that we can have the good times now. Like, all of El Salvador could have the good times now. These are deserved, right? This is the people of El Salvador deserve these good times after decades of gang war, of civil war, of corruption, and that's all over. And now we could start to build something quite extraordinary. And it's good that all of you were part of it. And thank you so much, Unchained, for, believing that in all of us here, me and Max and Frida and Chris, right, that we could do something pretty spectacular. And I'm glad it was. Thanks to the Coco Max.
Yeah, it's the Coco Max, you know. So, I think I saw something that has gotten me thinking a little bit different about golf. So I saw a statistic, and help me understand if this is true, that only 20% of people who get into golf ever break 90, and only 2% only break 80. Is that
Wow.
correct?
Sounds about right to me.
I think I saw that same stat the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I can break 90, you know, like now my competitive juices are flowing. I'm like, you know what? I could break 90. So now I'm going to be, I think I've taken another step toward the level where Chris is at, where he literally can't stop talking about golf. He's like a golf machine. He's like a wind-up toy. He's just like, he can't stop. But I can see now where this is going, into absolute kind of golf crazy land, because I know I can break 90. I know I can do it.
You should come up with a number that is in the top 21%. So what 21% of golfers break this number?
Yeah.
So be in the 21%.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
a great point.
Break 90, break 91. So yeah, I mean that's it. That's what
I'm looking to break 210.
You have our full support on both those numbers.
I've only swung once at the golf course and I missed the ball, and Max was being so supportive, and then he just looked away and kind of walked away in shame when I missed the ball. So
not true.
He said I would need to speak to the golf pro.
No, I was hoping you would ask me to help you with your swing.
Eduardo.
More close attention.
Eduardo, shout out to Eduardo, of course.
Oh, yes,
the
Eduardo.
resident golf pro at Encanto, and he's amazing. So
yeah, I saw him the day before, and he's like, I can't talk, Max. I have to find 18 golf clubs to rent out. I'm like, okay, get to it.
Yeah, I think we rented out every rental set of golf club in El Salvador.
Yes.
So shout out to him for helping us find all of those clubs.
Yeah. He's a good guy. Very good guy. Well, thanks, folks. You know, great wrap up. And, it's definitely the high bar has been set for 2025 for anybody else out there trying to have a fun time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. This was fantastic.